You know the mask, right? That smiling, almost unnerving face from V for Vendetta. It's everywhere, a global symbol for protest, for rebellion. But the story behind it, oh, it's way more complex, and honestly, a lot more controversial than you might think. So today, we're going to pull back the mask and look at the idea underneath. Remember the 5th of November, the gunpowder treason and plot. It's one of those lines, isn't it? A creepy little nursery rhyme that we all seem to know, and it echoes right through history and into the heart of this story. But what if the whole story we connect with that mask, the story of this revolutionary hero, is actually based on, well, getting the history wrong? What if the real guy behind the mask was never supposed to be a hero at all? That's what we're going to unpack. All right, so to really get what the mask is all about, we've got to go back, way back. We're talking over 400 years ago to 17th century England, which was a deeply divided and, frankly, a pretty dangerous place to be. So who was the real Guy Fawkes? Was he a freedom fighter? A visionary? Or was he something else entirely? The answer, it turns out, is buried in a plot that came incredibly close to completely shattering the British government. So this whole thing wasn't a spur-of-the-moment plan. It unfolded over a year. Back in 1604, a group of Catholic conspirators got their hands on a cellar right under the House of Lords. By July, they had secretly packed it with 36 barrels of gunpowder. The plan was to light the fuse on November 5th, 1605. They were just 10 days away when an anonymous letter was sent to a lord warning him to stay away from Parliament. That letter blew their cover. So on the night of November 4th, guards swept the cellars, and they found one man, standing guard over all that gunpowder, Guy Fawkes. And here is probably the biggest misconception about the whole gunpowder plot. We all know the name Guy Fawkes, but he wasn't the leader. Not even close. The mastermind was this charismatic guy named Robert Catesby. Fawkes, he was the specialist. He was a soldier, an explosives expert they hired for one specific job, to light the fuse. But because he was the one they caught red-handed, his face became the one forever tied to a plot he didn't even lead. Kinda ironic, right? So what was their endgame? Well, it was total. They wanted to assassinate the Protestant King James I, blow up the entire English Parliament, and put a Catholic monarch on the throne. It was also about pushing back against the unification of England and Scotland. So you could call it a religiously motivated act of terror, for sure. But it also had this fiercely anti-government, almost anarchist feel to it, this desire to just wipe the slate clean by destroying the state itself. Okay, so Fawkes was a captured traitor, set to be executed. How in the world did his image go from the gallows to becoming this global symbol of rebellion? Honestly, that journey is the wildest part of this whole story. Just think about that for a second. How does a man caught in the act of what we'd call domestic terrorism today somehow transform into a heroic icon for protest movements all over the world? The evolution is just incredible. It happened in 4 big steps. First, the state took control of the story. They passed an act to make November 5th a celebration of the state's victory. This led to bonfire night, where people would burn effigies of Fawkes, drilling in the idea that he was the ultimate traitor. For centuries, that's all he was. But then, things started to flip. By the 1800s, people on the fringes started using Fawkes as a symbol against the government. And that all led to the final step. Pop culture made him a legend. The V for Vendetta comic and then the movie took this underground symbol and shot it into the stratosphere. And here's a wild little piece of trivia that shows you just how deep this all runs in our culture. The word guy, as in that guy over there, it comes from Guy Fawkes. The creepy effigies they burned on bonfire night were called guys. Over time, the word just started to mean any man and now any person. How crazy is that? Okay, so we've got the history, but now let's get into the philosophy, because V for Vendetta isn't just an action flick, it's a battlefield for some huge ideas about freedom, control, and what it even means to rebel. At the very heart of the story is the idea of anarchy, but not anarchy as in chaos and riots in the streets. As V explains it himself, anarchy means without leaders, not without order. The philosophy here is that real, genuine order,
voluntary order, can only happen when people are truly free from being forced into things. And this throws us right into the story's central conflict, which is a debate that is absolutely timeless. It's freedom versus security. Freedom where the individual and their rights come first, versus security where the state promises to keep everyone safe, but often by taking some of those individual rights away. The story really makes you ask, how much of one are you willing to give up to get more of the other? So this is a huge part of V's philosophy, the power of symbols. You notice he doesn't target people, he targets buildings. Why? Because, in his own words, buildings are just symbols. And this really gets to the core of his belief. Symbols only have the power that we, the people, give them. So if you can destroy a symbol of oppression, he believes you can spark a change in how people think. And if you can do that, you can change the world.
All right, we've walked through the history and we've talked about the big ideas. But the real gut punch of this story isn't in the facts or the philosophy. It's in the really uncomfortable question it forces every single one of us to answer. And there it is, the million-dollar question. Is V a hero or is he a terrorist? The story is brilliant because it refuses to give you an easy answer. It deliberately builds a really strong case for both sides and then just leaves the verdict up to you. Let's just look at the two sides of the coin here. The case for hero is pretty compelling, right? He's fighting a truly evil, fascist government. He inspires an entire population to reclaim their power. He even dies for the cause. But then you flip it over, and the terrorist argument is just as strong. His methods are violent. They put innocent people at risk. And you could absolutely argue that his entire mission is fueled more by personal revenge than by pure ideology.
And this leads to a really interesting paradox for us, the audience. We watch the movie, and we're cheering for V. We want to see Parliament blow up. There's this release, this catharsis when he wins. And yet, if those exact same events happened in our world tomorrow, most of us would be horrified. We'd condemn it as terrorism. That gap between how we feel about it in a story versus in reality is a powerful thing to think about.
In the end, it was never about who V was it? When he says this iconic line, he's making it crystal clear. The mask, the man, they can be destroyed. But what really matters is the idea the mask stands for, the idea of freedom, of holding power accountable, of resistance. And that, he says, can never be killed.
So that leaves us with one last really challenging thought for today. We live in an age that's so focused on personalities, on individual leaders. Could a faceless movement, one that's united not by a charismatic person but by a single powerful idea, actually be the most effective way to create change? And what does it mean when the symbol for that idea is the mask of a man who was, in his own day, a failed religious extremist? That is definitely something we're thinking about.